Hello Army, welcome back to my channel. Today we're diving into something genuinely fascinating that's been generating conversation across both fan spaces and mainstream media circles, an essay published in Vogue by a writer who went into a BTS concert as a self-described skeptic, someone who had actively critical views about the entire K-pop industry, and came out the other side declaring herself a full-fledged member of ARMY within just 2 weeks. And at the center of this entire transformation, according to her own account, was one specific member who captivated her attention above everyone else, Jimin. Let's break down exactly what happened, who this writer is, and why this particular essay has resonated so strongly across the broader cultural conversation. So let's start by talking about who actually wrote this piece, because understanding her background genuinely matters for appreciating just how significant this transformation really was. The essay, titled Confessions of a Former BTS Skeptic, was published in Vogue and written by Jess Chung, a Korean-American author, podcast host, and writer known for her book This Way to Change. She's someone who identifies openly as a member of the LGBTQ+ community, and has been public about being autistic and having ADHD, positioning herself as a genuinely progressive voice within the broader cultural and literary landscape. This isn't someone who came into this experience as a casual pop culture writer looking for an easy assignment. This is someone with a distinctly critical, analytical perspective on media and celebrity culture more broadly. Let's talk about her musical background and taste, because it helps explain exactly why she started this entire experience from such a skeptical position. Despite being Korean-American herself, her personal musical tastes actually leaned heavily toward early 2000s hip-hop from scenes like Atlanta and Houston, genres and eras that sit quite far removed from the polished, highly produced world of contemporary K-pop. Beyond just personal taste differences, she also held genuinely critical views regarding some of the broader industry issues surrounding K-pop specifically, including concerns about the appropriation of black culture within the genre, and concerns about the exploitation of trainees within the industry's demanding development system. These weren't casual reservations. These were substantive, thoughtful critiques rooted in real cultural and ethical considerations. Let's set the scene for how she actually ended up at this concert in the first place, because the circumstances themselves reveal just how little enthusiasm she initially brought to this experience. She candidly admitted in her essay that she'd essentially obtained her ticket by accident, and walked into the venue with what she described as genuine disinterest. This wasn't a lifelong fan finally getting the chance to see her favorite group live. This was someone attending almost incidentally, carrying real skepticism about what she was about to witness. Let's talk about exactly what that skepticism actually consisted of, because she was remarkably candid about her preconceived notions going into this experience. She viewed BTS through a critical lens, describing her perception of the group as essentially a machine specifically engineered to maximize profit, an entity that feeds celebrity worship through carefully crafted artistic packaging, while artificially manufacturing a sense of intimacy and connection with fans that she assumed was fundamentally hollow or performative. That's a genuinely sharp, critical framing, the kind of perspective you'd expect from someone approaching an entire industry with real intellectual and ethical skepticism, rather than simply disliking a particular style of music. Let's set the specific scene of this concert, because the details matter for understanding exactly what she experienced. This took place during BTS's Arirang World Tour stop at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas this past May, a show that drew a crowd of roughly 60,000 people. The stadium was filled with the now familiar sight of color-changing light sticks illuminating the venue like some kind of massive, constellation-spanning light display, with that now signature 360-degree stage design positioned at the center of the arena. Let's think about what she initially observed and felt as this massive show began unfolding around her. Rather than immediately getting swept up in the spectacle, she initially maintained that critical, analytical distance she'd brought into the venue, watching the show unfold with the eye of someone actively evaluating and critiquing what she was seeing, rather than simply allowing herself to experience it as a casual audience member might. Let's talk about the specific moment of transformation she described within her essay, because this represents the genuine turning point of her entire narrative. At some point during the performance, she wrote that she simply stopped analyzing. That single sentence essentially represents the core turning point of her entire confession, the moment where her carefully maintained critical distance began to genuinely dissolve in the face of what she was actually witnessing and experiencing in that stadium. Let's think about what specifically broke through that initial skepticism, because her own account points to something beyond just the individual performances themselves. She described this as being the first concert she'd ever attended where, looking around at the 60,000-person crowd surrounding her, she could see Asian faces absolutely everywhere throughout the audience. She wrote about feeling this distinct, genuine sense of connection and community that she hadn't necessarily expected to encounter walking into this experience, something that went beyond just appreciating the music or the production values of the show itself. Let's sit with the significance of that specific observation for a moment, because it reveals something genuinely meaningful about why this particular concert experience resonated so deeply with her, beyond just musical or performance-related factors. For a Korean-American writer who's spent time thinking critically about issues of representation and cultural identity, encountering this massive, visibly Asian audience, all gathered together in genuine collective celebration and joy, evidently struck a chord that went well beyond simple entertainment value. It touched on something related to belonging, visibility, and community that clearly caught her off guard given her initial expectations walking into the venue. Let's now get into the specific detail that brings us most directly to today's video, because within this broader narrative of transformation and unexpected connection, she specifically singled out Jimin as the member who captivated her attention above everyone else throughout the entire performance. Out of all 7 members on that stage, all delivering what was undoubtedly an incredibly high-energy, visually impressive collective performance, it was specifically Jimin whose individual presence and performance left the deepest, most lasting impression on her. Let's think about why this specific detail matters so much within the broader context of her essay and her overall transformation from skeptic to self-declared ARMY member. When someone approaches an experience with this level of critical distance and skepticism, and still finds themselves specifically drawn to and captivated by one particular individual performer within a larger group setting, that speaks to something genuinely compelling about that specific individual's stage presence and charisma. It's one thing to be swept up in the general energy and spectacle of a massive stadium show. It's another thing entirely to specifically identify one individual member as the person who left the most significant impression, even while starting from a place of genuine critical skepticism about the entire experience. Let's talk about what happened after this initial concert experience, because her transformation didn't end the moment the show itself concluded. According to her own account, roughly 2 weeks after attending this concert, she declared herself an ARMY, officially embracing membership within this global fandom she'd walked into with genuine skepticism and disinterest just weeks earlier. That 2-week timeline is genuinely significant, because it suggests this wasn't simply a fleeting, momentary emotional response to an exciting live show, but rather a more sustained process of reflection and reconsideration that ultimately led to this genuine, self-identified shift in her relationship with this group and this fandom. Let's think about what that 2-week period likely involved, based on typical patterns we see when people describe similar experiences of falling into fandom after an initial live concert experience. This often involves continuing to engage with an artist's music and content in the days and weeks following an initial exposure, exploring back catalogs, watching additional performance footage, and generally allowing that initial spark of interest to develop into something more substantial and sustained, rather than simply fading once the immediate excitement of the live show itself had passed. Let's also touch on the broader analytical framing she offered within her essay regarding what exactly BTS represents and why they've achieved this level of global success. She specifically argued that what BTS actually sells extends well beyond just music itself. This kind of analytical framing, coming from someone with her explicitly critical, thoughtful background, adds genuine intellectual weight to her overall assessment of the group, suggesting that her eventual embrace of ARMY membership wasn't simply an emotional, uncritical surrender to fandom, but rather a genuinely considered conclusion reached after directly experiencing and thoughtfully processing what this group actually offers to their audience. Let's think about the broader significance of this essay being published specifically in Vogue, given everything we've discussed on this channel previously regarding Jimin's own individual relationship with that publication through his ambassador work with Dior and his own personal magazine features. Having Vogue specifically choose to publish this kind of candid, critically framed confession essay about discovering BTS fandom, rather than simply running a straightforward promotional piece or standard concert review, represents a genuinely significant piece of mainstream cultural coverage, treating this transformation as a legitimate, thoughtful cultural narrative worth exploring in detail. Let's also spend some time discussing why this kind of skeptic-to-fan narrative tends to resonate so strongly with broader audiences, beyond just existing dedicated fans of the group. Stories of genuine, unexpected transformation, particularly ones involving someone who started from a place of explicit critical skepticism, tend to carry significant persuasive weight for readers who might themselves harbor similar reservations or unfamiliarity with a particular artist or genre. When someone with genuinely critical credentials, someone actively engaged with questions of cultural appropriation, labor exploitation, and manufactured celebrity culture, ultimately concludes that this specific group offers something genuinely meaningful and worth embracing, that carries significantly more persuasive weight than a straightforward fan testimonial from someone who was already inclined to enjoy the music. Let's think about what this specific essay might mean for how BTS, and Jimin specifically, continue to be perceived within broader mainstream American cultural and media circles, extending well beyond the existing dedicated fanbase that's already deeply familiar with the group. Essays like this one, published in a publication with the cultural authority and reach of Vogue, have the potential to introduce this group to entirely new audiences, particularly readers who might share some of Jess Chung's initial skepticism but remain open to having that skepticism genuinely challenged through a thoughtful, well-articulated personal narrative. Let's also touch on the broader significance of this particular narrative arc within the context of everything else we've discussed throughout this entire comeback year regarding Jimin's continued individual recognition across multiple different sectors and contexts. We've talked extensively about his World Cup performance, his various brand partnerships, his continued industry recognition, and now, this genuinely compelling piece of mainstream cultural journalism specifically highlighting his individual impact on a skeptical writer's overall experience and eventual transformation. Each of these different data points continues building toward this increasingly comprehensive picture of sustained, multifaceted cultural relevance and impact. Let's think about what specifically about Jimin's individual performance and stage presence might have been responsible for creating this level of impact on someone approaching the entire experience with genuine critical distance. While the essay itself doesn't necessarily break down the specific technical or performance elements that captivated her attention, we can reasonably draw on everything we've discussed throughout this entire channel regarding his consistently praised stage presence, his emotional connection with audiences, and his overall charisma as a performer, all qualities that have been repeatedly highlighted by both dedicated fans and professional critics alike throughout this entire touring cycle. Let's also spend some time thinking about the broader implications of this essay for understanding the current cultural moment BTS finds itself in, following their return from military service and their subsequent, remarkably successful comeback era. Having a mainstream publication like Vogue specifically platform this kind of genuine, critically framed transformation narrative suggests that the broader cultural conversation around this group has evolved significantly, moving beyond simply covering them as a commercially successful entertainment act, toward genuinely exploring and validating the deeper emotional and cultural significance of what they represent to both existing and newly converted fans. Let's think about the significance of this essay's publication timing specifically, arriving during this particularly active, milestone-filled period of BTS's ongoing comeback story. We've discussed extensively throughout this entire year just how many significant moments have defined this particular chapter of the group's career, from the historic World Cup performance, to major stadium tour stops across America, to various individual recognition moments across completely different industries. This Vogue essay adds yet another meaningful layer to that already comprehensive narrative, specifically highlighting the genuine, unexpected emotional impact this group continues to have on new audiences encountering them for the first time during this particular era. Let's also touch on what this specific essay might suggest about the broader strategy and impact of this extensive world tour more generally, given that it was specifically this Las Vegas stop that generated this particular transformation. Every major stop on this tour seems to be generating its own collection of significant moments and stories, whether that's specific performance highlights, viral social media moments, or now, this genuinely compelling piece of mainstream cultural journalism documenting one writer's unexpected conversion experience. Let's think about the broader significance of this narrative, specifically emphasizing that sense of visible community and connection she experienced looking around at that diverse, visibly Asian audience surrounding her throughout the show. This detail speaks to something genuinely meaningful about the broader cultural significance of BTS's continued global success, extending beyond simply appreciating their music or performance skills into something touching on deeper questions of representation, belonging, and cultural visibility for audiences who might not always see themselves reflected in mainstream Western entertainment and celebrity culture. Let's also spend some time discussing how this kind of essay fits within the broader pattern of increasingly thoughtful, nuanced mainstream media coverage of K-pop and BTS specifically that we've observed throughout this entire comeback year. We've discussed previously how publications like Billboard have provided increasingly detailed, sophisticated coverage of specific performance moments and individual member contributions throughout this touring cycle. This Vogue essay represents a different but equally significant kind of engagement, moving beyond straightforward performance criticism into this more personal, narrative-driven exploration of what this group actually means to someone encountering their work with genuine critical distance and skepticism. Let's think about what this specific story might mean for other potential skeptics or newcomers who might read this essay and find themselves reconsidering their own preconceptions about this group or about K-pop more broadly. Personal transformation narratives like this one often serve this important function of creating permission or openness for other skeptical readers to genuinely reconsider their own assumptions, particularly when that transformation comes from someone with genuinely credible critical perspective rather than simply an enthusiastic fan trying to convince others to share their existing passion. Let's also touch on the broader significance of Jimin specifically continuing to be identified as this particularly compelling, captivating individual presence within group performance contexts, a pattern we've documented extensively throughout this entire comeback year across numerous different contexts and audiences. Whether we're talking about professional music journalists specifically highlighting his choreographic leadership, fashion journalists praising his individual style and presence, or now, a previously skeptical cultural writer specifically identifying him as the member who left the deepest impression during her own transformation experience. This consistent pattern across such wildly different contexts and audience types speaks to something genuinely significant about his individual impact and charisma as a performer. Let's wrap up by recapping everything we've discussed today regarding this genuinely compelling Vogue essay and its connection to Jimin specifically. Writer JiminChung published an essay in Vogue titled Confessions of a Former BTS Skeptic, detailing her transformation from a genuinely critical skeptic of the group and the broader K-pop industry into a self-declared ARMY member, following her attendance at BTS's Ararang World Tour stop at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas this past May. Within that broader narrative of unexpected transformation, driven partly by the electric atmosphere of the 60,000-person crowd and the genuine sense of community and connection she experienced throughout the show, she specifically identified Jimin as the individual member who captivated her attention and left the most significant impression throughout the entire performance, ultimately leading to her declaring herself an ARMY just 2 weeks after that initial concert experience. This entire story really does illustrate something genuinely meaningful about the continued, expanding cultural impact of both BTS as a group and Jimin specifically as an individual performer, extending well beyond the group's already massive existing fanbase into genuinely skeptical, critically minded new audiences who arrive with real reservations about the broader industry, only to find themselves genuinely moved and transformed by the actual live performance experience itself. It's exactly this kind of authentic, unexpected conversion narrative that continues demonstrating just how significant and multifaceted this group's cultural relevance has become, particularly during this remarkable post-military service comeback era we've documented so extensively throughout this entire year. Thank you so much for watching this video all the way through. If you enjoyed this breakdown of this genuinely fascinating Vogue essay and its connection to Jimin specifically, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update like this one in the future. Drop a comment down below letting me know what you think about this story, and if you've ever experienced a similar transformation yourself, going from genuine skepticism to eventually embracing ARMY membership after experiencing a live BTS performance, I would genuinely love to hear about your own personal journey into this fandom. As always, thank you for being here, thank you for your continued support, and I'll see you in the next video.